Greetings to you. My name is Heckmann and I'm from Denmark. I have been a Waldorf kindergarten teacher for about 40 years. I have this very important task in my life to work around childhood. For me, it has been the fundamental thing in my life to find out how to support childhood, how to be able to give the surroundings, the parents, the teachers, and also, and for the most important part, children, a life where they can grow in a safe and secure way, and where they feel they can trust the world, that the world is good. My background is a long education from the Copenhagen University as a culture geographist. And at the end of this study, I became a mother. And motherhood, parenthood, changed my life. So incredible. Because I suddenly, from looking everything in a bigger perspective, became aware of how important the simplicity, how important to be present, how important to secure the future through children. And then I made a life change and took 3 years full-time training as a Rudolf Steiner Waldorf kindergarten teacher. And I got 2 more children. And in 87, I started my initiative in Copenhagen, a Waldorf initiative, where I took children from 1 year, from walking age until school age, around 7 years. Because for me, it was very important to look at childhood as a whole, that it's not split up into ages, because that was what I was seeing in the Danish society and what I see around the world, that children within the first 7 years are maybe 3, 4, 5 places before they enter the grade school. And this age where it's so important to feel secure and to know what's going to happen, I find it's very important that they are surrounded by the same adults and also are the same place, so they can recognize what's going to happen. I was the first initiative in the Waldorf movement 40 years ago to take in children under 3 years, because in our Danish society, and I was say all over the world, parents are very busy, and financially often they need to go out in the world and earn money, and they need a secure place, a place where they don't feel guilty that they have to leave their children into, but also feel that they can be supported by the people taking care of the child, because those people have really dedicated their, if not their life, then their work life, with a knowledge on what does a little child. Being in a big city, I was very concerned about the skills for children's physical development. So within my daily routine, we spent 5 of the 7 hours we were open outside, outdoor. And this is in a country where there's rain and snow and wind and sometimes sun. That all weather is good weather. The only problem is the dressing. And if you're not dressed well, you cannot be outside. But when you're dressed well, you love to be outside. And you can really see how the light forces are growing in children, being able to be outside, jumping in the mud and the waterfalls and climbing up in trees. And this to develop skills, motoric skills. And this has a huge benefit on language development and social integration and self-security. And a big decision was also that I didn't want to children too long alive outside the family, because I still feel that to connect with your family is very important. And of course I know there are many people who cannot or feel they cannot change their life to work only 6-7 hours. But for me, to be a place at least who were saying the need of the child is to be no more than 6-7 hours away from home, because the home is so important. And yes, it can be very good for the child to be away from home and see other children and get inspired and grow some of the social skills, especially if you're a single child at home or you are the last child where you don't have so much interaction with other children. Or there can be parents who really need a break from the child. So I see there is a very important potential in having more children together. But I also find it so important that we secure the children not to be overwhelmed in their social life, in their senses. So therefore, I decided that the children had to go home around 3 o'clock. And this was, of course, very difficult for many parents. But I haven't had any parents, actually, who have not thanked me after they finished the time in the kindergarten, which was maybe 12, 15, 18 years, depending on how many children they had, because all siblings could go the same place, so it was not so difficult for parents to have them together. And also this, that siblings knew what has happened during the day, so when they go home, they can continue the life of the kindergarten. So it's not like it is two different worlds, because a home is of course different from an institution, but the playing and the way of treating each other when you are siblings and are the same place will be taken home, and it will reflect how their life will be at home and how they play. So this to come home in afternoon and have 1 or 2 hours at home before you have to eat, and then you have to settle down and you have to go in and sleep, give a very important upbringing for the child, that the home is important, and at home is where I learn something that I cannot learn other places. And it is through the parents that the children learn how also to speak with each other, and how we have tradition, and how our family do speak to each other and meet other people and so on. This that I really still feel it's so important with a life at home and in the family. And here there's really talk about a huge sacrifice in a way for many adults. Like when I had my 3 children, I really realized I could not do the work that I thought I could do before I got children. The life before children and after children are like 2 different planets. And we can never really imagine what it is like when you have a child. When you first go through, of course, the pregnancy and the birth, and you have your baby in your arms, life change. And it is a huge challenge for all parents to become parents, because they are not born as parents. It's something we have to learn, and we have to do many mistakes. And through the mistakes, we learn and start educating ourselves. And every child we have is different. So even though there are something that the first or the second child has learned us, we still have to find new ways with the new individuality that comes within our homes. And now my own 3 children have become adults, and I am a grandmother of 6 grandchildren. And of course, being a grandmother is very different from being a parent, because as a grandmother, it is like having the dessert all the time. We can just love, and we don't need to be in a hurry. And we can just sit there and say, "Oh, you are so wonderful. Oh, yes, you're right." And just be there and be quiet and not. Because we don't have to get for the rent. We don't have to do maybe the grocery shopping and the cleaning and the food making and the pressure and all the tasks that there are in the home. So grandparents are very important for the grandchildren to be a person who have time, but also the support of the very busy family today. And the family of today is in many ways very pressured. And being a caregiver, and I use very much the name caregiver or gardener as the professional people who take care of other people's children, is not everybody who can be that or do that, because you need to have developed skills where you can distance yourself from yourself and be able to do objective observation on the children who are in your care. When you are a caregiver, you need, because it is your profession, because you cannot not do it, then you shouldn't be a caregiver. You need to work very much on yourself. And I think it is the most important work in the world. It really demands that the caregiver is being able to have a balance within her himself, where it's not important what you feel, what you would like to do, what desires you have. Because when we are working with children, we are working out of the need of the child. And we need to penetrate ourselves with the qualification of observation and positive thinking and flexibility, but also a very strong feeling of what is right and wrong, and your moral and your empathy, sympathy, and anticipatory, that you know what it is and where it comes from. So when we are around the children, that they can feel safe and secure. That the one who is responsible for you is a person you can trust. You rely on them. One moment it's not yes, you may, and the other one, no, you may not. Which it sometimes can be in the homes because it's so busy and people are so tired at home and frustrated and they have a bad conscience. But we don't need to have that as a caregiver. We can really work on ourselves so that we are aware of who am I and how can I be the best me. So that is what the child meet when I greet it, when it comes to me. I don't think we really realize how much it means for the child, that the primary care person it meets every day is the same. It's not some new in the morning or you have a rolling schedule and there are different people calling and maybe you have talked about how you do it and everything. Everybody agree on that, but nobody can do it the same way and we're not supposed to. But this that children, that little children under 3 years really are meeting the same people, doing the same thing every day, has a huge impact on the child's growing self-esteem. When we are able to greet the child and we have penetrated how the daily rhythm with the child will be, and that we are capable of doing the same every day. This is not a boring thing for the child or for you. It is a thing where the child can stabilize itself. It can recognize what's going on. It can lean into the rhythm of the day. It's not being surprised. It doesn't have to be afraid of what's going to happen. It can just go into this daily stream, and through that stream slowly start to develop itself safely. And it takes time for a child to develop. Even though in many ways you can say it goes so fast, childhood goes so fast, and it does. 7 years is not many years compared to 90 years. But the whole life has its base in the first 7 years, and even stronger in the first 3 years. Because the first 3 years, the child doesn't have an awakened consciousness. The most of us cannot remember what happened the first 3 years. And in this society, and for many people, it's not important then when they cannot remember what's happening. Does it matter what happens then? And you can see in the modern life, we start having the little children laying in a car seat, movable car seat, and you just take the child around everywhere, not really being aware of that all the sense impression that comes to the child through changing places and surroundings and sounds and people has a huge impact on the child's feeling of safetiness. So little children really need to have a stable home, stable daily rhythm in home, in our garden, in our care, in our institution. And that can be a challenge if we don't understand how important it is. The need of the child is very physical as well. I mean, what happens the first year from not having developed any muscles, and then suddenly through the first years, everyday development, suddenly it becomes upright and can start walking out in the world. So many things do happen in the child's development, but the physical development are tremendous import. And the little child really need to be challenged and also encouraged to go out in the world safe and secure and meet the nature, to be able to walk down or up a little hill or roll down, to meet a tree with some wonderful branches, and it can watch bigger children or a little older children being able to climb in it and trying slowly to develop skills so it can climb. So the adult who are around the little child are allowing the child to develop physically by itself. to get it to places where there are possibilities of development, but you don't help the child to do it. We don't take a child into a tree. We wait until the child can climb by itself. We don't push the swing. A child can swing when it's able and capable to do it with its own feet and get the swing going and so on. This, that it's out of a knowledge to help the child to be self-independent, that we don't do the things for the child, but we make sure to show or to make it available for the children, to whoever they are, to develop in the time it takes for each child to develop, because they are very different children. Some are very fast and some is very slow and some is in between, and everything is okay. There's never a child who is not okay. They all take the time it takes, especially if we give it to the child. And when they so then develop the skills, they are very secure in it, and they have an inner security that they can bring with them to the next challenge, because all our life we have challenges. And if we in our early childhood have had the possibility of, in our own time and space, we have an inner security to challenge and meet the challenges we will meet in our life, that we all, of course, will meet. Having little children, I also find it's very important that the groups are not too big. In my setting, we had 8 little ones from 1 to 3 years old. And sometimes it was too much, because some children maybe has a bigger need. And sometimes we felt, oh, it's nearly nothing. Of course, every group of children are also changing depending on the different skills and development of the children. I have been many places where there are 12, 16, maybe 20 little ones in the same room. And I find it very challenging, because I think often there will be too much noise for the little child, and too much is going on. And it's very difficult for the little child to feel itself. And especially when they are under 3, they spend most of their time on observation. And this, for a child to have time enough to observe, it's like the whole body, the fingers, everything is eyes. And often they don't have much mimic in their face. They're just watching. And they seem so still. But inside the child, it is hugely active. It observes, it absorbs, and out of observation, they do imitation. And a little child imitates everything. It imitates throwing with things, it imitates screaming, it imitates building with small blocks, climbing, everything. It also imitates the gestures of the adults, the way the adults speak to each other. The whole atmosphere in the room, they imitate in their slowly building up social capacities. The whole surrounding around the child makes a huge impact, and often an invisible impact. So for the child to have adults around it who are nearby, who create a center periphery where the adult is a center and the child is moving in the periphery of the adults, is an awareness we have to have, very present. We cannot leave a room when we are with little children because they don't know if we will come back. And you will see they are like little ducklings if you go out of the room, or a mother will tell, well, when I go to the toilet, my child go with me to the toilet. But because they cannot let go, because they don't know what will happen. So for the caretaker and the caregiver, it's very important to be present, to develop slow movement, and be very, very, not concerned, but very, have an awareness of how my movement are around the child, that I don't do it too fast so the child get a shock, but I'm ahead of the child all the time. If we are giving the clothes, I will first take the hand, and then word will say, now here is the jacket. We give the hat, now we put on the hat. So the child all the time feel it is a part of what is going to happen, so it doesn't get surprised. Because that's another very important awareness around the child, not to shock the child, not to surprise the child, and also have the awareness of they don't like transitions. When you go from one thing to another, there need to be a flow, maybe a song. When you are going to put on the clothes because now you're going for a walk in the morning, then when you start the song, the children know what's going on, and you sing that every day. This will help the child very much to understand what's going on, and it will help the child to cooperate with you, because when they know what's going to happen, they're very willing to participate. But if they don't know what's going to happen, or they don't feel met in what's going on, they will reject cooperation, and you will have these very traumatic scenes where the children are very unlucky, and you become very unlucky because you mean to do things in the best way, but the child cannot understand it, and words do not help. Children under 3 years don't understand words. They are learning words, and they try to imitate, and the words slowly come, not the language, but the word slowly comes. But it's the imitation, is your way of repeat everything that makes the child cooperate and find a way how to use it towards the outer world. As a little child on the tree, I am the world is me. They cannot differentiate that we have to share toys, or we have to do this and this and that. If we, through the surrounding and with our gesture and if our way to be, we can have the children not to pull up the hair of the other one, or hit the other one, because it's not living in the room, then they don't have to do it. Or you are ahead when you see something happen, and then you move the child away. You're not upset telling the child you should behave differently, because they don't know how to behave. They're learning how to behave. Because the physical development is so important, is to feel safe and secure in your own body. It is very important if you in any way can be outside. And not only outside in the little garden, but also this to be able to go for a walk, to do cross movement are very, very important. And I see around the world, because the last 11 years I have not been in kindergarten, but been asked to go different places to do mentoring, talks, parents, workshops, trainings, and so on. I can see that many parents, both because they're very busy, but also they have a lot of fear that they don't bring children out so very much as we did before. Us who are taking care of little children have to realize that children of today are not moving very much. They are sitting a lot because they imitate. And if the adults are sitting, they will be sitting. They also do a lot of play. I mean, little children don't really play. They on the development to be able to play, but they can sit in a sandpit and have the most fantastic encounter with their senses, with the sand, and imitate food making or finding worms or get connected to insects, and this just to be in peace is very important. I really hope every setting has an embraced sandpit where the child can spend time. But it's also a time where they're sitting, they're not doing very much physical development. And since they don't walk so much with the parents, because many carry so much, or they're sitting in prams. Yeah, there's no time for walking. You drive your car all the way to the door of the supermarket, or to the kindergarten, or to the nursery, or wherever you go, it's always, how close can I come? It's not living in us anymore, that it's how important it is to walk. So for little children, it's very, very important that we walk with them. Because if they don't walk, if they don't get the impulse to walk, and we nurse this impulse, they become more and more lazy because they imitate what they see. There will be some children who is always very physical, but there are many children who are slowly getting more and more lean in their movement. So this to go for a walk, where you say, well, now we go for 10, 15 minutes without stopping. And then you can go to a place where you can have some play or have a stop and say hello to the dog who is passing on and that. But this, that you realize every child has to go 1-2 kilometers every day to work on the physical body, to do the cross movement, which is making the brain bridges, which is helping the breathing system. Many children are very lost in their upper part and don't breathe all the way down in the belly. It's important for the spit in the mouth, for the digesting, for the well-being of the physical body. It's very, very important. And we really have to find out how can we do it safe and secure. Maybe we can just go around the block if there's no parks nearby, or if there's too much traffic. There's nearly always possible to find a possibility of doing it. And you have to do it every day. You cannot just do it once a week. They need, especially the little ones, it is a repetition. You put on the clothes, we go for a walk, and it's the same walk every day. It's not a new walk every day, no. It needs to be a repetition. And when you do that, they also get introduced to your climate. They will see trees, so there's no leaves, and suddenly the leaf come, and then the bird come, and then maybe fruit or flowers, or not something that we talk to them about, but we observe it with them. And then suddenly, one day they will have, oh, now the birds will soon come back. Or, I can smell the flowers. I remember it from last year. But it's something that they themselves discover. And this to discover yourself, not being told all the time to the head, is so incredible important, because something you have experienced through yourself, you trust that, and it teach you how to cope the world. So, of course, we help the child to form it and set boundaries around it. But we also leave the freedom within the boundaries for the child to experience itself. And I find this very, very important, that the adult is able to hold back. Of course, I know a lot. I have skilled myself to become a gardener, so I know how to do the garden work. I know all the birds. I know the trees. I know all these things. But this security in me that I know it is not something I force down on the child. It's something I can use when there is a reason to do it. So, can you hear? We all hear the sound of a bird. It's a woodpecker has come back. And there it's okay to say it's a woodpecker, because that is what you hear. But you don't do it before you have an action that can support what you are saying. And you first allow the child to have the sense impression. I don't push knowledge in the child. I allow the child to grow from inside out and not from outside in. So building a routine in the day where you go for a walk in the morning and have play outside in all weather. Well, maybe in Alaska, I have really experienced it will be too cold, or maybe even too dangerous sometimes with the animals. There can be reason that you have to have seasons written, which is also okay, because we live where we live and we have to live under the condition we are living. But with the little children, and that's the children under 7, they have the big motoric and the big activity. It is in the morning. So that's where you would go for a walk, also with the smallest children. And when you walk, you can also sing. Singing is a very big, enthusiastic life joy. I mean, you cannot be singing and be sour. It's not working. When you sing, you go out of into another room, and soul room, and it brings joy to you. And to have some little songs on your way gives also a point where you tell the children where you are. And with the simple singing, I'm not talking about hip hop or rap or whatever, but little children songs. And often the traditional songs are they have a lot of wisdom in them. But it's also a way for the child to come into the language, because singing is a melody. It's not a conscious thing. You don't have to. It can be, you can sing all kind of nonsense that can be funny. You don't sing to teach. You sing to learn another way of breathing, and you learn the language, that there is a melody, and and there's ups and downs, and it's like the step before language. And I have experienced over my many years in the kindergarten that my little 1 and 2 years old, they sing before they start speaking, and especially those children I have with more languages, it's very important for them to come into the Danish language that they have to come to when they live in Denmark, has been through singing. So walking is many things. It's not just large, like soldiers. No, walking has gifts, so many gifts. And being outside 1 or 2 hours, I walked 40 minutes with my children from 1 to 6, 7 years old for 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And then there was a place where we had the place where they could then play. And they played 30, 40 minutes. And then we did song games outside. And after that, I started on the walk home. The walk home was shorter than the walk out because they start getting hungry. And that's also so special with little children because if you present them for a rhythm, and it is like that, they are very willing to be in that rhythm if it's sensible. So they don't need to snack all the time. I see many, many children of today in many, many countries that people feed the children all the time. So they are not really ever getting very hungry. Of course, there are places where there are too little food, and there are children who are hungry. But many children are not having this challenge not to get enough food. And it also creates that children, when they don't feel hungry, but they just get more or less forced to eat all the time, or they only get things that they like to do, and often very sweet things and things that they don't need to chew on. We get children who are very picky eaters. But if you walk 2 hours and you don't have any snack, maybe you make a break and then they get 2 raisins and an almond or something, because it can be good for the group to have a little break. But they are actually having at least 2 hours where they don't get food. When you get home, they will be hungry. And this, to eat together, is a huge challenge today, because many children at home are not eating with other people. Maybe a nanny is just feeding them, or there's only one home who feed them and don't sit down and eat together. So this, that we in our initiatives are able to sit down around a table together, is very important, because it is working on creating a community feeling. Of course, as younger the child is, as little time they can sit at a table or wait for getting their food. So it has to be very much met, their needs has to be met. So when we create our rhythm, it has to be from a knowledge of the need of the child. So if you walk from 9 to 11:30 and you come home and take off the clothes and maybe some change diapers there. We first change the diapers after eating. And then the little ones eat 11, 11:15. You will see children will eat. I mean, I have had children where the parents say, oh, they don't want to eat this, they don't want to eat that. But when you're hungry, you eat the porridge you get. And all the other children are sitting and also here imitation is a big help, because they see the other children eat, and they see the adults sitting eating with pleasure, and there is a quietness around the eating, and the eating is set up on a table with a nice tablecloth, and it has just very simple plates and a cup, and the simplicity is very important. And also there's maybe not too much light where you're sitting eating, and you light a candle in the middle of a room, if it's allowed. I don't know. There's many places. There are rules and regulations where you're told what is allowed and not allowed. But then you will have another possibility in building up the feeling of we in your group when you're sitting eating together, because it is very cozy and it is very nice, and it brings big joy within yourself. And then when you have eaten, the children are tired. And this, that they have had the good walk, they have had the good food, it really makes the possibility of putting them to bed, and they really want to go to bed. And I had them sitting on a potty in a circle, 8 children, and I did a few rhymes and games, and then one by one they came to me, and they were standing up, and I put a diaper on them. Of course, if there's anybody who have been pooping, they had to be cleaned, but the most didn't poop at that time. It's very different, but it's seldom 8 children poop. Maybe there's only one, or it comes later. And then you put on all the clothes, and then we were one, and it was mostly me putting the diaper on. Or we took half a year, maybe I did it, or Gitte, my colleague, did it, and then the other one would put them to bed. So it would be the same putting diaper on, and the same putting them to bed. Again, in this very, very sensitive moment for the child, because to sleep is not just something you do. You have to feel safe and secure. But when it's done, everything is done in the same way. The child is very willing to follow the procedure, because it knows what's coming. It's not surprise. And then putting the child into bed, we use cribs, so they have their own security, and there's like walls around the child, so it feels safe and secure again. Like when it's laying in the mother belly, it's also surrounded. Huh? You do the same when it sleeps. And maybe you say a little prayer, or maybe you sing a little song, and you wish the child a good sleep. You just can see the child. 90% of the children, they really just won't. Many maybe don't fall asleep immediately, but then they have a little door they can lay with, or they start doing a little finger game, or doing a little song. And then we just hear the deeper and deeper breathing, and then the wonderful sound of a child sleeping. And of course, we as adults also feel very tired, and there's a cleaning, but maybe there's also a time for a rest, a half an hour's rest, when the children are sleeping. And the midday sleep is so important. So important. I hear from more and more places that parents ask for the children not to sleep midday sleep, because then they cannot put them to bed later in the evening. and it has nothing to do with each other. Midday sleep is really, really important, but it has to be done within 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock. If they sleep midday sleep at 2, 3 o'clock, they sleep maybe to 4, 5, or go into night sleep if they don't sleep very well in the night. So this, that the children sleep between 11:30 and 2 o'clock, that is midday, that's a right time to sleep, and it will have no consequences for the night sleep. But sleeping has the consequence for the child that it is through the midday sleep, it sort of digests what it has learned through the morning. So we have to look upon sleep as a learning process. It's very important. To sleep enough is very needed. And so many children in our society do not get sleep enough. And also this that we support and talk with the parents about, little children under 7 years need 11 to 12 hours sleep in the night, plus the midday sleep. So movement, appropriate eating, being in nature and have sense integration within space and time, building up a rhythmical life that you follow every day. And you as a caretaker, make sure that you are the same person day in and day out for your children, so they don't have to find out what mood is she in today, but they can rely on you. Makes it possible for the child really to enter the world with the feeling of life is good. The work you do with the little children, the life you live with your little children is so important. Childhood never returns. And as more we can get the child to feel it's okay and feel secure because we have taken the decision and we are carrying the responsibility for the child, because the child cannot take decisions itself. It doesn't know what's best for it. As better the child's chances for understand and work with the life they will meet, the different life they will meet when they go to grade school, and where they also have another consciousness and they need some other things than the first 7 years. But the security for them to be open to go out into the life relies on the first 7 years. And the first 3 years is the most important for building up a healthy self. Yes, thank you very much for listening, and I wish you the best. And thank you very much for choosing children and being there for them.